this video, I'm going to discuss some additional items that I didn't mention in the previous videos in order to reduce the complexity of the information and the module exercises. First item is editing references in place. And if you remember, I did briefly mention the Activate option of the reference dialog box. This option allows you to edit the elements in the selected reference file without closing the active design file. It is obviously extremely useful, but there are some points to consider. Let me show you what I mean. I'm in the original plot sheet model right now, and I'm going to select the road layout design. I'm going to go to Tools and Activate. And if you notice on the screen, the road layout elements are still showing as heavy lines and can be selected, whereas the elements in the other attachments, such as the houses and the tree symbols, cannot be selected. In other words, you've isolated the road design, but more importantly, you're actually now working in the road model, and you can edit the elements in that model. And of course, to deactivate that model, you simply go back to Tools and click on Deactivate. Now, before I do that, a couple of extra points. If the reference that we've just opened happened to have some references of its own, in other words, nested references, the elements in the nested references will be visible, but you can't edit them. Also, the activated reference is locked and cannot be edited by anyone else in your working group who may also have access to that source file of the reference. And if you activate another reference at this point, then the currently activated reference will be automatically deactivated in preference for the second activation. Now I'm going to deactivate that before we go any further. And everything's now back to the previous display. Now the next item to discuss is something called drawing titles, where you attach a reference in a sheet model and you can add a title to that reference for information purposes. Let's see how this works. I'm going to open the full-size title block model. This is where we left the title block at full size and scaled down the elements in the references. And I'm going to reference in another file. So I'm going to go to Attach, and I'll go to Road Design, and I want the houses 1 and 2 model. I'm going to give this a logical name of houses, and going to leave the scale factor at 1 to 192, since that's how the drawing references are scaled, and then look at the title information at the bottom of this box. We need to create a title, that's the drawing title, and let's give it a name again, Houses, and we'll say OK. Now I need to move my box out of the way and maybe zoom out a little bit. And here I see that Houses reference displayed, and underneath it I see the drawing title. It's a fairly simple little drawing, but it does identify this reference. It tells us that we're referenced into the TB full-size sheet model. The name of the reference we called Houses, and the effective scale is 1/16 equals 1 foot. Now this whole title is selectable and scalable, and each of the text strings are editable. So if I double-click on the text string, it pops up the text editor and I can edit that text string. Now again, this is really for information purposes to identify this attachment, but it can be used as a call-out for a design file if necessary. Now the next point is drag and drop. A quick method of attaching multiple references, or single references for that matter, at the same time is to drag and drop design files from a file management program, such as Windows Explorer, directly to the reference dialog box. Once there, the dragged and dropped files are considered to be references, and you can edit the settings through the normal Properties settings box. Other design files and other items can be attached in this way, and the best way to see that information is to go to the Help files. So go to Help, Contents, and Search, and enter drag and drop as the search term. Another item is the type of files that you can actually use as attachments, and it's quite a long list. So if I go to Attach and look at the Files of Type drop-down list, you'll see that there are quite a number of files that you can actually attach. And particularly note that AutoCAD files are on that list. I'm sure you know that MicroStation will open and edit AutoCAD files. I'll cancel that. Now the next section to have a look at is saved views. And I'm going to open the Houses 1 and 2 model and the Saved Views dialog box. Now we had previously made two saved views in this model, House 1 and House 2. This one I've added myself for my own personal use, so ignore that. Now you do know, of course, that having selected a save view, you can apply it to any open view in the design. And you do so either by double-clicking it, and then at the prompt on the status line, selecting a view. I'll left-click in this view, which pops up the saved view. Or with the view selected, you can use the Apply Saved View icon and achieve exactly the same results. Data point in the view, and we see our saved view. Now, after applying a saved view, if you adjust the view by zooming or panning, etc., you can then update the saved view with the Update Saved View icon. This resaves the adjusted view to the same name, but with the new view attributes. Now, a little caution is required here, since the original save view will be changed. And if you've attached those saved views to a design, as we have done, then those attached views will be changed to the new view settings, which may or may not be what you want. So give that a little thought before you actually use that operation. Now, what's also useful is to be able to see the source of a save view in a design file. Now, we know that we have two saved views in this design, but we don't quite know where they are or what the extents of them are. So, in the Save Views box, under the Show column, simply click on each of the two saved views, and in the screen you'll see the extent of those saved views. Now, that's very useful. And in fact, you can use the handles of these displays to change the extents of the saved views. And then, of course, you would save those changes. And, of course, don't forget that you can right-click the headers to add additional headings if necessary. Now I'm going to turn off the visibility of those save view outlines. Now, the next thing to look at is saved fences when used as attachments. I'm going to zoom into House 1 here. I'm going to place a fence around it. I'm going to use a shape fence and the inside mode. And the fence I'm going to place is going to be a little different from what you might think. What I want to do is to isolate the chimney in the save view. And there's my fence with the chimney isolated. And I'm going to save this. Untitled, let's say No Chimney. And we'll save that. So now we have a saved fence called No Chimney. That's so I can use it again, and so that I can identify it when I insert this house number 1. So we'll close that. We'll go to our plot design, and we'll attach that saved fence. So we attach. It's in the row design, it's in the houses 1 and 2, and it's under the named fences option. So here's our No Chimney, named fence. We'll leave everything as it should be, except that I must change the scale from 1:192 to 1:1, since this sheet model has full-sized drawing elements. Also, drawing title is on from the previous exercise, so that needs to be removed. And we're ready. We'll say OK. Here comes my house 1. Let's plop that into place. And if we look closely at this, we'll see that we have no chimney. Click on another reference so we can see the full extent of the house 1 insert, and there's no chimney. So the information in the fence is being transferred through to this reference file. Let's go back to the houses 1 and 2 model. Look at our fences. Now we see the saved fence in place. If we take that off, if we delete that, go back to our plot model, and if we look at the references dialog box, we'll see that our name fence now says not found. Well, that does make sense since we have eliminated the fence from that reference. So at this point, we really need to delete that file, even though it's still supposedly in place. We will have great problems later on since the link back to that save fence is no longer valid. So I will click on delete and enter. Now you might try that for yourself. It is quite a powerful way of displaying parts of reference files rather than the entire file, and goes a little beyond the normal saved view, which tends to show sometimes more than you want to reference in. Now the last item on my list is models. I'm going to dismiss my reference files, open up the models, and just note that you can import models from other drawing files. For example, click on that. Let's go to the tree design, and I want to import the unit tree model, and we'll say OK. Now we get a warning saying this file already contains a model called unit tree, and he wants to know if we want to overwrite the existing model. Well, I'm going to do that to save a lot of fuss. I can always undo it later if necessary. I'll just say yes. Now what we see is that model in place inside our road design. And remember that that tree file was separate from the road design. So we've imported the drawing of the tree icon from that other design file. Now that ends the information on references. And as always, you really need to practice. This is a very large subject, quite complex, and you really must become very, very familiar with the reference and model systems. This is especially so if you work in 3D, where the system is used to great advantage between 3D and 2D presentation drawings.